everyone, this is a quick tutorial for setting up an authentication with Firebase and React. Firebase does have a new version, which is version 9, that comes with benefits. For example, one of them being that it is modular, which is very important because, as you can see from the screen, Firebase does offer a lot of services, but if you're using only one, like in this case authentication, previously had to import the whole SDK, which included all of this, to use it, the size of which can be large, but now they follow a more modular approach, so it's more efficient. So yeah, whether you're integrating it for the first time or updating to version 9, I thought this video might be helpful to follow the most up-to-date version. So what would be included here is sign in and sign up forms, also the state management of whether or not user is signed in, and finally sign out functionality. So let's dive right into it. If you don't have Firebase account, you can go ahead and create one, but if you do have like a Google account, you should just be able to like start up Firebase, and once you navigate to console.firebase.google.com, you'll be presented with this screen. So now we can create a project here. So enter the project name. We can say React Auth tutorial, accept the terms and continue. So for this project, we are not gonna use Google Analytics. We can say create project. It's gonna take a minute to start up. Once it's ready, we should see this screen, and right now the project is just created. There's nothing enabled, so we can get started with authentication. And here we indicate what kind of authentication do we want. So for this tutorial, we're gonna use just email and password. So let's go ahead, enable that and save it. So let's save this. Project settings is where we can see API keys and use them to integrate into our React app. And what I do with these keys is that I store them in a password manager, Nordpass. So the sensitive information is not tied to one device, my computer, but I can securely access it from anywhere. Another important feature of Nordpass is that I'm able to share these keys with my teammates, and it solves the issues that a lot of developers are facing when they have to track down the keys or wait for someone to send it to them. And this can be a blocker for a developer, especially when you're trying to run an application on your local. So Nordpass is also a sponsor of the video, and if you'd like to see Nordpass Business in action with a 3-month free trial, you can use code WebDecoded to get started, and the link that's on the screen and also in the description of the video. Navigate to the folder where you would like your React project to be created, and you can run npx create React app and the name of the project. Let's name this one Firebase React. Actually, let's do React Firebase Auth. And after it loads, we are gonna cd into it. So cd React Firebase Auth. That will take us to that folder. And afterwards, we're gonna install a Firebase package by just running npm install Firebase. So this package comes with some of the functions that we need to like talk to Firebase. Basically, this is their npm page, and they have different aspects, not only authentication, but the real-time database, Firestore, storage, and etc. Let me know in the comments if you want tutorials on any of these other services. Okay, once we have the package installed, we can run the application by npm start. Localhost 3000 is where your app will run. Let's go back to Firebase and create a new app. So it would be the web app, and we're gonna give it name React Firebase Auth tutorial. So we registered the app, and then we copy the configuration that it generates. So we already did the install part, we just need to copy this piece. So copying it and going back to the project. Inside here, we can create a new file for Firebase. So let's do that in the source folder, firebase.js, and paste our keys. As you can see at the top, we need to also indicate what kind of service that we are using. So this is the list of available libraries. In our case, we want the authentication. So let's see what's going on here. So at the end, we need to get this like get auth and pass the wrap in it. So let's copy it and paste it at the end. We also need to import the get auth, and that will be coming from Firebase Auth folder. So then in source, we create 2 new folders. One is components, and then inside components, we create another folder naming Git Auth. And inside this folder is where we're gonna have sign in and sign up files. So create signin.jsx. And we navigate to our new file, create a new arrow function component. It automatically names it sign in, and we're gonna update this, just give it a class name. This would be sign-in container. And inside here, we'll turn this into like a form. So form tag, HTML tag, and adding like elements inside it. So first one, we have a header. This would be h1. And inside here, we say like the title of component, login. Then next up, we have input. Type of this, we're gonna set to text. And then placeholder, we can add placeholder something like enter your email. So this would be for the email field. And actually, we can change the type to email because that's one of the types for inputs. And close this out. We can also copy this, paste it, and modify it for our password. So changing the type and changing the placeholder. So that would be enter your password. And removing these extra spaces. We also are going to need like use state so that we can store the values that are going to be passed by the user to our input fields. So let's create 2 states for this. First one would be email. So constant email, set email, this equals, and by default, this would be like empty. And the same thing for password, creating like a new state, set password, and equals use state, empty as well. And we can pass the values so that respectively, like value of first one would be email, value of second one would be the password, the state that we just created. Now we can also import this like sign in inside app.js and see if it like just shows up on the page, test it out. I'm going to remove all this extra code that automatically generated in app.js, and let's navigate to our page. So we can see the form is there, but even if I enter right now, type in it's not going to show the values because we don't have onChange function. So let's add that right now to all of our inputs. So onChange, we want to take the event and set our states to be of that like current .target. So that is actually what picks up the value from input that user enters. So that would set email would be in our first case, and then in the case of the second input, it would actually be set password. So now our state, as on every like update of the field, will get updated as well. So we can check it out. So now if I go back to the form and I start typing in, we can actually see the changes in both cases. And after the inputs, we also need a button so that we can submit our form. So button type would be therefore submit. And we can add the name saying login. As for the function, we also need to create a function that's going to handle all the logic when the form is submitted. So let's say constant sign in. And so let's write a comment now first. Let's pass it to the form and then update the logic of it. So on form on submit, this happens when user either clicks the button submit or they press enter, then it will be submitted. This is where we need auth object that we created in Firebase.js. So let's first at the top import auth from Firebase. And then let's remove this comment right here. We can pass the event from the form, and inside here write event.prevent default. This is so that our page when form is submitted does not get reloaded and we don't lose the state of email and password. Next, we can import the function from the Firebase that's gonna help us create the sign-in functionality. So sign in with email and password, and make sure at the top you import this from Firebase Auth. And we pass the auth object, and then we pass our email and passwords provided from the user, and then we say then. So this is like this function returns like a promise, so we're gonna wait until that gets resolved and we get back the user credentials. For now, just to test it out, we can console log those user credentials and see what the user object coming back from the Firebase looks like. So let's do that, user credential. And also in case we have any errors, we can catch them and console log them as well. So error object returning console log with error in it. Okay, let's save our changes and see how it works now. So just because I don't have any users created, this should probably say that user doesn't exist, but that way we can check that we have actually connection with the Firebase. So error, user not found, so that's good. Now we can use some of the logic here and create like a sign up file. So new file, sign up.jsx, and I'm going to paste the code from over there and modify what needs to be modified. So first of all, here we're going to use a different function from Firebase, which is create user with email and password. And we'll also modify where we're calling this function, which is on line 11 right here inside of our submit function. So let's update that. Oh, I pasted the wrong code. Yeah, we just need the name of the function. And we'll also change the submit function, that would be sign up instead of sign in. And let's do the same for whenever we're like passing that function as a props to on submit form. As well as the header, that should be sign up. And the button, we can say sign up here, and then maybe header can be like create an account. And change the sign in to just say something different other than the button, something like log into your account. So going back to the sign up, the JSX, let's see what else we have to change here. Oh, the name of the component, that's going to be sign up. Yeah, we can use the same name because we're going to import both of them in the app.js file. So now we can go here and import sign up since we created. And we can put this sign up below our sign in component. So sign up, closing tag, and saving this. Actually, let's move the sign up file also inside the components auth, like we have sign in. So moving this in auth, if you want to update the imports, yes. So that would update app.js because it previously said components -sign up. So make sure if it doesn't for you, check it if it's updated. Going back to our page, let's create an account. I'm just gonna put in an email and a password. So at gmail.com and our password, pressing sign up. And here we can see the object that came back, user credential. That means the user has been created, but we'll also check that in the console, and we can inspect the object. It has user field, and then we have auth, we have the email. So now going back to our Firebase console, just to double check, we go to authentication and we see our users right here. So here it is. Now, coming back to our code, we can create a new file which would be for auth details. So this file basically will write the logic which checks whether user is signed in or not and which user it is. Also, we're going to add like if user is signed in, add a sign out button. So creating the file, importing use effect, because we're gonna need that to set up like a listener to check if the auth state changes. So once we have that, we would also need like our auth object from Firebase. So import auth and then Firebase. And let's add also use state here, because we're going to create like a state for user. So let's start with doing that. Constant user, set user, and then equals use state. By default, this would be null. So passing null. And then we can write our use effect. So this use effect inside here, it's going to have this listener and this empty dependency would be empty array, so it runs as when the component loads. So constant listen and then on auth state change, which we need to import from Firebase Auth, is the function that we're going to use. We need to pass our auth object to it, but afterwards we can say like check get the user object and see if it exists. So user, and then this is kind of like a callback function that takes in the user. And let's change the state name to like our local state name so we don't get mixed up. So auth user, set auth user. And then if user exists and comes back in this function, we can update our state and set the state to it. So this would be if user, and then inside set auth user to the user object. So we can say user current user other fields, but let's just take the whole user object first and then later on use it however we want it. And then else set auth user, we're going to set to default, which is null. And we can update our JSX to display, like tell us if the user is signed in or not. So let's use the conditional logic of just checking if the state is there. So auth user and then question, if it's there, we're going to say signed in. So let's create and say signed in, and then if not, then we'll just say signed out. So this is inside the fragment, side out, and then we can actually turn this into like just the paragraph. So P and in here as well. So we have that. Let's import it in app.js. Auth details, and then below sign up we have our auth details. Okay, now we can save this and go. We were already signed in, so we can see that this says signed in. And now let's display the user email. That would be the current user and the email. We can also double check the state by using components, React Dev Tools. In the state we do have this user stored. So now let's go back to our auth details, and in here using template literals, I believe that's the name of this. So curly braces, and then as we take the user and then display its email, so that should be auth user, our state, dot email. And And let's quickly test if you can guys see the email that's right there. Okay. And now we can add our sign out button. So that would be in case only displayed in case where user is signed in. So let's wrap this into a fragment and add the button here. Button and sign out. And we'll also add like a functionality for the button. We do need, since we set up like a listener in useEffect, once the component like unmounts, we need to remove the listener. So that's what this return inside useEffect does. So we don't need to like listen whether or not, if the component is not there, user is signed in or not. So let's return that listen. Okay. And below useEffect, create our sign out function. So constant sign out that equals to we're not taking anything in. And sign out is the function that also comes from, we need to import for Firebase Auth. So let's rename our actual function user sign out and then use sign out, pass the auth object to it. And yeah, let's do the import here at the top on line 1. And auth, and then we can display if it signed out successfully, console log message, sign out was successful, and also our state is gonna get updated, so we'll actually like notice it on the page, right? Because it should say signed out. And then if there's any errors, it's always good to also console log them. And passing this newly created function to our button, so that would be on click and then equals to user sign out. So just pasting it here. Let's save this and see if it works. So we have the button here displaying sign out, and in console let's click sign out and then we do see the message. Great. And don't forget to try Nordpass as your password manager, where you get 3 months off using my code WebDecoded. Link would also be in the description of the video, so check it out.